If you've ever had a neighbor who seemed to think your life was just some background noise to their own, the kind of person who acts like their opinions are law and your property lines are more of a loose suggestion, then buckle up because you're about to feel seen. If not, count your blessings and listen close because this one takes the cake. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'm real curious to see how far this story travels. So I'm Arthur Jenkins, a retired logistics guy from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I like my peace. I spent my career making sure everything landed where it was supposed to, right on time, so order and routine are just in my DNA. My wife and I put down roots in this house, poured everything into it, but since she passed, it's just me here. There's this little guest house in the back. Built it thinking maybe her mom would move in one day, but mostly it just sat there full of old furniture and the kind of projects you promise yourself you'll get to, eventually. Recently, I figured it'd make sense to fix it up, maybe set up a real home office or even list it for short-term rentals. Money's not everything, but it doesn't hurt, plus I like the idea of a little side hustle. But before any of that, I wanted it to be secure, so I went ahead and bought a smart lock and a couple cameras. Just enough to make sure nobody was helping themselves. Honest folks don't mind, and the dishonest, well, they get caught. I spent a Saturday morning installing everything, got it all working right, even talked to my tools out loud like some old sitcom dad. Just as I was packing up, I heard my back gate creak open. Not the friendly kind of creak, but the impatient, demanding kind. And there she was, my neighbor on the left. Let's call her Evelyn Thorne. Picture a woman in her late 50s, hair shellacked into the shape of a motorcycle helmet, face set like she's perpetually smelling something sour. We'd barely spoken over the years, the odd nod, maybe a complaint about leaves from my tree invading her concrete patio, but nothing real. She marched right up to the guest house, eyes zeroed in on the new lock like it had personally insulted her. "What is that?" she demanded loud enough for the squirrels to hear. I told her it's a new smart lock, just an upgrade. She didn't miss a beat. "You can't lock me out of there. I need access." Now, I might forget where I put my glasses sometimes, but I'm sure I've never given her any reason to be in that guest house, let alone need access. "Excuse me," I asked, keeping it polite. She was getting redder by the second, telling me it was a neighborhood understanding that she could go in during emergencies, or if she needed to store something. I almost laughed. I've lived here 30 years and never heard of that one. I explained nicely but firmly that this was my private property, not some communal clubhouse. If she had an emergency, call 911. If she needed a tool, she could ask. Not that I could imagine what she needed from me. That didn't go over well. She huffed, called me new money under her breath, and stormed off, slamming my gate so hard it rattled. I stood there a little stunned. All that drama over a lock, I figured she just needed to vent. Some people just can't help themselves. Made myself lunch, told myself that was the end of it. But if you're guessing it wasn't, you're right. That night, just as I was settling in with a book, my doorbell went nuts. You know, that kind of frantic ringing that says this is going to be a headache. That one. I peeked outside and saw the flashing lights. Police. Heart in my throat, I opened up to two officers. Apparently Evelyn had called them, claiming I was illegally locking her out of shared property and denying her access to her belongings. I'll admit I was speechless. Shared property. The gall of this woman was on another level. I told the officers the truth. The guest house is mine, always has been, and as far as I knew, the only things she had in there were dust bunnies. They took it in, did the whole he said, she said routine, and advised me to work it out amicably. I tried to keep my cool, but my patience was wearing thin. This wasn't a misunderstanding, this was targeted harassment. But that detail, her claim that she had belongings inside, nagged at me. It was too specific. What if by some twisted logic she really had put something in there? I decided to check the camera footage and smart lock logs. That's when the story really took a turn. I started with the new smart lock app, no authorized access except mine, but there were a few failed code attempts right after she'd stormed off earlier, which I could only assume were her. Then I checked the old security camera footage from before the upgrade. That's when my stomach dropped. About 3 months back, late at night, there's Evelyn slipping in through my gate, heading straight for the guest house. She had a spare key, one I'd stashed years ago back when the kids were still losing theirs and completely forgot about. She must have spotted me using it at some point. There she was, letting herself in, staying inside for over an hour, then sneaking back out. Night after night, week after week, sometimes with bags, sometimes with another woman. My guest house had become her personal crash pad. Fueled by a mix of anger and nausea, I marched out and unlocked the guest house with my phone. The inside was exactly as I'd left it, except for the air mattress, a stash of snacks, a bottle of cheap wine, toiletries, even a ratty blanket and a pillow. She'd been using my guest shower running up my water bill, and as I'd find later in the camera footage, even hosting guests. She wasn't just crashing there, she was bringing people in, playing hostess on my property. This wasn't nosy neighbor territory, this was criminal trespassing. Next morning, I confronted her. She was in her yard pruning with a pair of rusty shears. I walked right up to the fence and told her I knew about the key, the visits, the guests. For a moment she looked scared, but it passed, fast, replaced by a shriek about verbal agreements and tenants' rights. She was trying to claim she was being illegally evicted from a place she'd never rented, never paid for, never had any right to. She escalated, threatened to sue, said she had rights. I told her calmly as I could to stay off my property, that I had all the evidence I needed, and if she crossed the line again, I'd call the police for trespassing. She stomped off, but I knew this wasn't over. Sure enough, a few days later, I got a certified letter she'd filed a claim complete with cut-rate legalese saying she was a month-to-month resident and I was illegally evicting her. I called my nephew Thomas. He's a lawyer and laid out everything. He was as shocked as I was, but told me exactly what to do: gather all the evidence, respond officially, and get ready for her to play dirty. That's what she was doing, trying to turn her trespassing into a fake landlord-tenant dispute just to muddy the water. So I compiled everything: security footage, lock logs, photos, property deeds, even statements from other neighbors backing up that she lived next door, not in my guest house, and just in time because the police came back this time with her accusing me of locking out a tenant. I showed the officers everything. Their attitude changed fast. Suddenly, they weren't looking at some civil dispute anymore. Now it was potential fraud, breaking and entering, and criminal trespass. But I couldn't shake this feeling. There was more to the story. That's when I started looking up short-term rentals in my neighborhood. Sure enough, on a sketchy site I'd never heard of, there it was, my guest house listed as Evelyn's Escapes. Photos of my place, the quilt my late wife made, my potted geraniums on the patio, all described in flowery language, marketed as a secluded urban nest. She'd been running a fake B&B out of my backyard, charging $75 a night with bookings stretching back 4 months. I took screenshots of everything: the listing, the reviews, even the payout info. The math was ugly. She'd pocketed at least $3,000 using my utilities and property without me seeing a dime. That cold anger settled in again. This was outright fraud. Armed with all this, I went down to the police station and asked for a detective. That's when Detective Alicia Ramsey entered the picture, sharp, no-nonsense eyes, like she saw straight through every story. I laid it all out for her: the lock, the trespassing, the bogus tenancy claim, the illegal B&B. She listened, took notes, pored over my binder of evidence, and by the time I was done, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mr. Jenkins, we're going to pursue criminal charges. This isn't just trespassing. It's fraud, theft of services, and unlawful entry. We'll get a warrant." Let me tell you, that was a relief I can't put into words. For months, it felt like she was using the system against me, lying, twisting things, playing the poor old woman card, and suddenly the law was finally on my side. A few days later, I watched from my front yard as police cars quietly pulled up to Evelyn's house. Detective Ramsey and Officer Samuels knocked on her door. It started with her yelling, then waving her arms around, but when they told her she was under arrest, the meltdown was epic. She shrieked, accused everyone of a setup, insisted she was the real victim. The whole street watched as she was led away in handcuffs, the mighty Evelyn Thorne, self-appointed queen of the block, exposed for all to see. The court case took a few months, but in the end, the evidence crushed her story. The judge called her actions a flagrant abuse of trust and property, sentenced her to 18 months, and ordered her to pay restitution. Her little B&B empire gone. I got my peace back, finally. I cleaned out the guest house, hung a banner that read, "Now available thorn-free guest house," and threw a backyard barbecue for the neighbors, a celebration of order restored. I even put up a simple webpage warning about scams like hers so nobody else would get caught off guard. Looking back, yeah, I learned the value of good locks and better cameras, but more than that, I learned that sometimes you have to fight for your peace, document everything, and stand up to the ones who think they can rewrite the rules to suit themselves. Sometimes justice is slow, but when it finally lands, it's sweeter than you could ever imagine. So now I want to hear from you. What's the wildest neighbor story you've ever heard? Who's tried to pull a fast one in your community? Share your stories in the comments, And let's remind each other that sometimes the good guys do win. Stay safe out there, folks, and always, always trust your gut when someone wants access to your guest house. You never know what kind of escape they're really after.